I'd like to welcome everyone here this afternoon. My name is Phil Sweeney. I'm the current chair of the Board of Directors for the College of Physical Therapists of BC. Excuse me one moment while I put down my gavel. I would like to call the 2016 AGM of the College of Physical Therapists of British Columbia to order as of, I believe it's 1:03 or thereabouts. There are 212 registrants present, and they are carrying with them 10 proxies. This means that under Section 4, Subsection 1 of the College's bylaws, the quorum for a general meeting is 50 registrants, which we are exceeding, and all 50 registrants present and in good standing. Therefore, quorum has been met, and we can carry on with our meeting. I would like to confirm that the agenda is as follows, and you should have received the agenda in the package that got sent out to you previously. We will begin with some introduction of some important guests, introduction of our current board, the 2015-2016 board members, approval of the minutes from last year's AGM, followed by the chair report, committee reports, the registrar's report, a board nomination report. We have some recognition awards, and then my other favourite part, we get to destroy the proxies and adjourn the meeting. First, to introduce our guests. Okay. I should have looked at the slides beforehand. First of all, I'd like to introduce Madge Wiseman, who is an honorary member of the College of Physical Therapists. And I would ask the Thank you. I should have said at the beginning, when the guests, if your name is called, could I please ask you to stand, and then we will sit down at the end. And it will take us a while to get through our lengthy, long list of guests, so if we could hold our applause to the end, please. Edwin Liu, who is a public member on the Finance Committee. Craig Dale, who is a public member on the Finance Committee. John Zimmer, who is a public member on the Inquiry Committee. Please stand. Mr. Anthony Tobin, who is counsel to the College Inquiry Committee and also counsel to the board. Norm Godina from Reed Hurst Nagy, who is one of the college accountants. Kathy Larkin from New Leaf Bookkeeping Services. Dr. Dali Sanderlands from EMP Educational Measurement Professionals Consultants to the Quality Assurance Program. Natasha Netshay Davies from Moonraker Public Relations, who are also consultants to the Quality Assurance Program. Anne Rankin, the Interim Associate Head of the MPT Program from UBC, Department of Physical Therapy. Thank you, Anne. Jason Coolin, the President of Physiotherapy Association of BC. Kevin Evans, the CEO of the Physiotherapy Association of BC. Michael Brennan, the CEO of the Canadian Physiotherapy Association. Excellent. Diane Millett, who is the Registrar and CEO of Physiotherapy Alberta and also a CPA board member. Somewhere I've missed her. There she is, thank you. And Moya Stoke, who is the former chair of the Quality Assurance Committee. And Valerie Kittler, a physical therapist who has recently retired. So if you could all please join me in welcoming our guests. I would also like to just take a moment, if you'll indulge me, to thank a number of the college's office staff who have helped put on the day today. They have been working feverishly behind the scenes to get the day organised, and we've had a little bit of a turnover of our staff recently, so a lot of new names, and they have risen to the challenge and exceeded expectations, so thank you very much. So first of all, Olga Nisik, Susan Paul, Chris Smedden, please all stand up if you would. Liz Hunter, Alice Yu, Aidan Dennis, Alana Kozak, Erin West, Alexandra Neems, and Arlana Taylor. So please a round of applause for thanking me to put the day on. It is also with great pleasure that I get to introduce the board members from the 2015 and 2016 years. Beginning with Victor Britton, I will ask you to stand up, who is a registrant. Wendy Carter, an appointed public member. Maureen Duggan, who is a registrant. Anne Harris, a registrant. Jatinder Sander, who's an appointed public member who unfortunately couldn't be with us today because he has some very important duties to deal with in Surrey in the Vaisakhi parade. Marilyn Tevington, also another appointed member, could not be with us today, unfortunately. Suzanne Watson, a registrant. Carly Aspin, a student representative from MPT1. Kate Shaw, a student representative from MPT2. And last but not least, Heather Leslie, who is on me with stage and is our current vice chair. And myself. Okay, the approval of the minutes. The minutes, I believe, were sent out to you prior to the meeting in the package to notify you of the AGM occurring today. I would like to ask the question if there are any errors or omissions in the 2015 minutes. Hearing none, the minutes will be received and placed on file. At this point, I'd also like to direct registrants to the annual report to receive the various reports that we're about to talk about. First of all, the Chair's report. Are there any questions around the Chair's report? Hearing none, the written report of the Chair as set out in the College's 2015 annual report will be received and placed on file. We have a number of committees, and so in order to expedite the reports, we're going to, well, Robert's Rules requires that the presentation of the content of the reports at the AGM. So given that the reports have been mailed out to all registrants in accordance with the bylaws, I'm going to propose that following the introduction of the committee chairs, I ask that there are any questions regarding any of the reports. Following the question period, it will be noted that the reports were received and placed on file. So I'm going to introduce the committee chairs now. For Registration Committee, we have Suzanne Watson. I'm going to ask the committee chairs to please stand and remain standing until we have finished taking questions. Acupuncture Credentialing Subcommittee, Sean Bevan, who is the current vice chair of that committee. Thank you. The Quality Assurance Committee, Victor Britton. The Standards of Practice Subcommittee, Peter Goyette. Patient Relations Committee. Unfortunately, Jane Cates, as the chair, could not join us today, so Laurie Hendry, as the vice chair, is stepping in. Inquiry Committee, Greg Noonan. Discipline Committee, Rob Hoffman. Legislative Committee, also Victor Britton. And the Finance Committee, Anne Harris. I would like to ask if anyone has any questions regarding the reports in the 2015 annual report of the College for the committee chairs. Question? If you could please direct which committee chair you're talking to.
Is this on?
Yep.
It's the Financial Committee.
You might need to get a little closer to the mic.
Okay.
Sorry.
I see that there's $550,000 in cash. There's an investment of $24,000, and there's a restricted cash of $704,000. So it means that the College of Physiotherapy owns $1.2 million. If I turn to the page, then I see that the investments of $24,000 is invested at 0.6%, which to me doesn't sound like much. And then I see on page 14 that the interest on the $1.2 million is $19,770,000. When I turn to page 11, I see that the interest and bank charges are $57,778,000. So it costs us more, in my opinion, to have this money than that we get an income on this money. Can you shed light on this?
The bank charges of $50,000+ are the Moneris fees that we pay in order to allow you to pay your registration fees by credit card. So that's the difference. It's fairly costly, but it does, in one way, save a lot of staff time, which is staff money, which is money to you, the mailing out of information and getting back the checks. So we recognize that it is costly, but I think it's part of doing business. I don't know if maybe Anne?
Yeah, so thank you for your questions. One of the things that we are looking at is what investment strategies we have, and so it's on the plan is to relook at it right now, but we tend to generally invest in conservative investments, so the return is not going to be too high, but that's something that we always have decided on, is to keep things more conservative. Is there anything else I can answer while I'm up here? I will do a presentation as well, so perhaps if you wanted to wait until I do the presentation, I might be able to answer some of your questions in the meantime. Yeah.
Thank you, Anne and Brenda. Are there any other questions for any of the committee chairs? Hearing none. Not hearing none at all. Thank you for that question. The written reports of all the college's standing committees and subcommittees, as set out in the college 2015 annual report, are received and placed on file. Funnily enough, I will now hand the microphone over to the chair of the Finance Committee, Anne Harris, to continue on the presentation.
So yes, just to introduce myself, my name is Anne Harris, and I'm a registrant. I'm the chair of the Finance Committee, and I've also been involved on the board, but my term on the board will be finished today. I wanted to give thank you to the staff members who support us, including Brenda Hudson. I also wanted to acknowledge again the public representatives that we have on our committee, which is Edwin Liu, who will be finishing his term very shortly, so thank you very much for your time. And I wanted to welcome Craig Dale, another public representative who is just relatively new to our committee. We also have another registrant on the committee whose name is David Shaffrey, and I wanted to acknowledge his time on the committee. So what I will do now is I'll review the financial statements. There is some information in your books already. I'll review them kind of in a PowerPoint presentation. What I'll do in the next few minutes is just highlight some of the discrepancies between what we anticipated was going to be the cost of the year or the revenue for the year, and then just highlight some things where we either had more revenue, more expenses than we had thought, or less. There will be time for questions, and I will be here all afternoon, so if you have questions that I don't answer at this moment, you can always come and find me later. So this first slide is just looking at the income for 2015. So we had approximately $90,000 in excess of total revenue than we had anticipated. This has been a trend for the last few years. The main reason is due to an increased number of internationally educated PTs or an increased number of physiotherapists applying with application fees and registration fees based on changes in the Alliance credentialing program. We've seen that for the past few years, so it still is occurring. So that last slide was income. The next few slides are looking at the expenses. One of the big things to highlight on this slide is that our actual expenses for the board of directors was higher than we anticipated. There was one case related to unlawful use of title that did require quite a bit of money to be put into it, including over $20,000 in legal fees that we did not anticipate. Additionally, there was a number of educational and professional development opportunities, and so some of that monies went to wage replacement for some board of directors to have some education and professional development opportunities in 2015. This is another slide about expenses. It's looking at a few of the different committees. The Quality Assurance Committee was under budget from what we had anticipated. Some of the contracts that we paid for in 2014 was actually for some work that was going to be done in 2015. So some of the monies that was required for work done in 2015 was actually paid in the previous year. The Inquiry Committee is also lower than we had anticipated. There was a fewer number of cases, and sometimes not necessarily the number of cases, but the amount of involvement of the cases and how complex they are will determine how much money is required. You can see there's a large discrepancy. The actual budget was much higher for other, and within the other category, a number of committees fall under that, including registration, discipline, and legislative committees, amongst others. So some of the reasons for that higher cost is, for example, the bylaws were rewritten this year and required some legal counsel, so that requires some money to be put towards those. The registration committee also had more involved cases. They required some legal opinion. They had more face-to-face meetings. I'm sure the committee is aware of that. They also had to hold a registration meeting, not quite a hearing, but to do with some of the more complicated cases. So that increased the fees for some of those committees. And general office expenses. So there is a line for office expenses that was a little bit higher than what we had anticipated. There are some phone lines and computer lines added, as well as desks to deal with some additional staff. Phil introduced some of the new staff. There's some new faces, but also additional faces to the number of FTEs that we normally have. So the final slide here is just looking at the summary of the last few slides. So our total expenses were actually less than what we had budgeted, about just under $23,000 less. We were able to put some money into the reserve fund. So the board of directors approved moving $35,000 into the reserve fund. So this is the first year that I've been involved where the reserve fund is really actually right on the target of what we wanted. So it's close to $805,000 in the reserve fund at this moment. So there was someone who had a question. Maybe I didn't answer it, but feel free to come and ask questions.
Just to follow on to my question, I see that, so the restricted cash is, I guess, the reserve fund.
So the reserve fund has two portions. 80% of it is restricted and 20% of it is unrestricted.
And so is that part of the cash? Because, I mean, what you're presenting probably today is not what I have here, because this is from last year.
So you have the 2014 and the 2015 there in your book.
Okay. So am I correct that we have the restricted cash, which is the reserve fund?
So maybe Norm, did you want to come? So Norm is the accountant who works for Reed, Hurst, and Nagy, and he has kindly come today. So he deals with some of the numbers in the background.
Yeah. Afternoon, everyone. Just give me a moment here. In the audited financial statements, and they were audited, part of our function is to review the records for materiality, risk, and other elements. And part of that process as well is to prepare a management letter or management memo, of which we make recommendations to assist in the orderly conduct and the safety of investments within the whole concept of your financial well-being. So in our management letter, we indicated a number of areas and have to report in a number of areas to the board and to administration and to management. And we had found no significant unusual transactions that were an issue. We found accounting estimates to be quite well done, and we didn't have any disagreements with management through the whole process. Now, specifically, we had issues that we did not encounter during the audit process, but specifically in terms of investments, overall it's been kind of a bad year for investments. You know, the markets have been really, really bad. And as a not-for-profit organization, you know, your portfolio really has to be conservative. I mean, I'm involved as a trustee in some other organizations, and part of the problem is when you get into anything related to equities, there's a chance, yes, you can have a large upside in terms of investment, but you can also have a large downside. So your organization and your directors is really conservatively investing because you want those funds to be there. If your funds are restricted, they're restricted for purposes that need to be outlined and need to be within the policy and mandate of your management. When you get into unrestricted funds, yes, that can be used for operations. So we didn't find anything through the audit process to indicate that anything was untoward or that good management was had of your investment portfolio. The return, granted, is not very good. But on the other side, your capital is protected. And the key is, if you've got restricted funds, you need to have that capital restricted for the longevity of your organization. Now, when you talk about restrictions, the whole purpose of why not-for-profits are going into restricted areas and putting funds aside, okay, is so that they can protect themselves from issues that Canada Revenue Agency was raising 3 to 4 years ago, making sure that your organization is properly planning for the future and not in the business of making money. So from my perspective as an auditor, when I see an organization with restricted funds, I see it's good management. When I see an organization that has an investment portfolio that stays out of equities, I think it's a very good process, okay? And it's to the betterment of your organization. Why, again, and I stress it, you need to have that capital entrenched for the future operations of your organization. And that's what your board and that's what your management is doing. It's quite unfortunate when you look at that compared to the service charges for banking, as indicated earlier. But Brenda, it's expensive to do the type of banking that you're doing. But the resources it's saving your operations is quite good from a perspective of how you're looking after and managing your money. Why? Because your board, your management is managing what? Your money, your contributions from your memberships, etc. Okay? So that's very, very important. The restrictions and the nature of the restrictions are listed on the audited financial statements, and I'll just read those out briefly here. Sorry about the voice, I'm just getting my voice back from the flu bug, I think, which has hit a lot of people. So, with an accountant during tax time, during audit time that can't speak, I don't know, some people would call that a blessing, but I don't know. I like to keep my voice. So, basically, when you look at your funds, they're outlined on the statements as to the purpose, and I can certainly discuss that later, and answer any questions related to those restrictions, but it is outlined on the statements, and your statements are audited. So I hope that answers your question. If the lady would like to talk about it later, hey, that's great. But just to bring up a few points, and I hope I haven't laid the whole issue, and hope I've helped with it. Because our purpose is to be here and to attend and answer questions related to the audit. Otherwise, we can be screwed as not being independent from the audit process. And we're certainly independent. Thank you for welcoming me here, and if there's any other questions related to the audit, I'd be pleased to help, or I can certainly provide information from the direction and the approval of the board after that. Thank you very much.
And I'll just add a little bit more about the reserve fund, because people had asked this to me earlier today and also last year, is, for example, what is the reserve fund for? So it is for extenuating circumstances. Under some sort of a catastrophic event, when the office might need to be closed, it would be to pay out salaries. Perhaps if there's any leases that we still have, it might be that we still need to pay rent for a certain amount of time, depending on the situation. Those are the types of things the reserve fund is used for. It also has some money set aside for if we have to have a discipline hearing or some sort of extraordinary event. That could be up to $100,000 or even more than that. So those are the types of the things that the restricted funds are for. So Norm is here later, and so I will be available as well. So if there are no further questions, is there anybody else that has a question at the moment? Okay, so hearing no further questions, the 2015 audited statement has been received and will be placed on file. And I'll just quickly take 2 slides to talk about the 2016 budget. So using the 2015 actual budget. So we've just anticipated a fairly similar income from what we had expected last year, what we had seen last year. And this is a slide looking at the expenses. The big discrepancy is the board, staff, and professional development. In 2015, there was quite a few opportunities for education and professional development that I mentioned earlier. And these types of conferences are not annual. They come every other year, every few years. So we're expected that the top line is going to be a little bit lower this year for 2016. And now I need some help. We're going to appoint the auditors for 2016. So I'm going to make a motion. I will move to appoint Reed Hurst Nagy, formerly known as Morrow & Company, as the auditors for 2016. And I would ask for a seconder, please. And Gabrielle, thank you. And I will ask the question, all in favor? Motion carried.
Thank you, Anne. I will now call on the registrar to answer questions regarding the registrar's report. Does anyone have any questions regarding the registrar's report? Hearing none, the registrar's written report as set out in the college's 2015 annual report will be received and placed on file. I will now call on the registrar to talk about the board nominations.
This is the fun part. So it's my pleasure to let you know that 3 nominations were received under Section 3, bracketed 2 of the college's bylaw for the 3 vacant positions on the board. And just as a refresher, we have 3 vacant positions every year. There are 2-year terms, and so we generally could have a turnover of 3 individuals in 1 year. And unfortunately for the college, this has happened. Marilyn Tevington, who is a public member, has served her 6-year term. Unfortunately, she can't be here with us today. but we have sent her our thanks. And we have 2 other members who have to step down. Phil Sweeney has completed his 6 years, and so has Heather Leslie, and so we have to say goodbye to the... Oh, sorry, Ann Harris. Heather's going for reappointment. Yeah, Ann Harris. And so we have to say goodbye to them. Thank you, Susan. We have to say goodbye to them today. But we have received 3 nominations, which were received in the college in the appropriate time frame. And so the following 3 registrants were acclaimed as directors of the College Board, each for a 2-year term. First person is Garrett Gabriel. Garrett, please stand. Garrett is going to serve a first term from April 2016 to 2018. There are some brief bios in the back, but basically Garrett has worked in Vancouver, and he is now in Vernon in public practice, I believe. And so welcome. Kim Hall. Kim, where are you? Kim is also serving her first term on the board, and Kim is from Vancouver and has her own business and private business, and I believe is well known in the community down here, so welcome. And the third person is Heather Leslie, and Heather is our current vice chair, and she is to serve a second term on the board. So our current members will be Wendy Carter, Victor Breton. Wendy, please stand. Victor. Maureen Duggan. Jatinder, unfortunately, is not here with us today, but is doing great things out there for us. Suzanne Watson. We do have a vacant public member, and our new appointments, Heather Leslie, Garrett, and Kim. So welcome, and I'm now going to ask the 3 new members to please step up to do your oath of office. According to the Health Professions Act, any new members on a board must swear their oath of office or give their oath of office. We have generally done that in the privacy, if you want, although board meetings are open. We've generally done that at the end of an annual general meeting going into our board meeting. A few years ago, we felt that this was important enough for our registrants and our members to see the commitment that your new board directors are making. So I'm going to give them instructions, and they are going to read their oath out to you. Would you please raise your right hand and repeat out after me. Start together. I don't need to hear forever. I do solemnly affirm that I will abide by the Health Professions Act, and I will faithfully discharge the duties of the profession according to the best of my ability. I will act in accordance with the law and the public relations. I will act in the interest of the college as a whole. I will uphold the office of the college and ensure that I am guided by the public interest in the performance of my duties. I have a duty to act honestly. I will declare when private interests related to my public duties and take steps to resolve any conflicts arising in a way that affects the public interest. I will ensure that other memberships, directorships, voluntary or paid positions, or affiliations remain distinct from work undertaken in the course of performing my duty as a board member. As witness. You are now being held accountable. Thank you very much.
I'd also like to just also introduce our 2 student representatives from UBC, the MPT1 rep, Carly Aspen, she'll be continuing on with us, and Kate Shaw, the MPT2 rep, will continue on with us as well. Thank you. So it's that part of the day when we get to recognise a number of registrants who have committed time to the college. And I just want to acknowledge that the activities of the college could not be completed without the dedication and hard work of many individuals that volunteer their time to ensure the organisation meets its requirements as set out in the Health Professions Act and the college bylaws. So it gives me great pleasure today to recognise individuals who have contributed to the college and who have also completed their term of office. So if you're present in the room, I'd ask that you'd come forward. First name obviously being Sophia Zhao, who has been on the Patient Relations Committee from September 2009 to September 2015. I would like to also recognise Peter Goet, who is the chair of the Standards of Practice Subcommittee from April 2010. Oh, he's been on the Practice Standards Subcommittee since 2010 in April and is stepping down as of March 2016. Joanna Guret, also Standards of Practice Subcommittee since November 2009 to 2015. And Carla Kausch from the Standard of Practice Subcommittee from April 2010 to April 2016. Let's have a round of applause for those people. Quality Assurance Committee, Jane Gates, been on the committee from April 2009 to April 2015. Leanne Juris, the Quality Assurance Committee again from April 2013 to April 2015. Jonathan Russell, again from April 2013 to April 2015. And Moya Stokes, who from 2015, January to December 2015. However, I wanted to say a little thing about Moya. Please come on up. Moya, I'm not sure how many people are aware of this, but has been involved in the Quality Assurance Committee from pretty much the outset of it. It's been a number of years, and she's been integral to the development of the program and has shown great leadership during her time on the committee. Moya did retire from practice last year, at the beginning of last year, and stepped down from the role as chair, but continued because she was committed in 2015 to the Quality Assurance Committee. So I wanted to acknowledge Moya for her commitment and thank her publicly for everything you've done. The Quality Assurance Program item writers, Christine Acton from September 2009 to September 2015. Margaret Bednard from June 2009 to June 2015. Angela Ozero from June 2009 to June 2015. Karen Suave from April 2009 to April 2015. And Daryl Skinner from April 2013 to April 2015. Edwin's name's been mentioned a few times today already, but we'll do it one more time. Edwin has been a public member on the Finance Committee from February 2010 to 2016, and he's done such a great job that the board has actually approved an extension of his term on the Finance Committee so that he completes some work that's already been started on the staff compensation project. So, it is with a little bit of sadness that we also have to say goodbye to a couple of board members. Marilyn Tevington, who was a public representative on the board, she is unable to join us today, but she's been a valuable asset to the college, and we are very sorry to be seeing her leave us. She was appointed in April 2010, left in April 2016. She was also a member of the Registration Committee from June 2014 to March 2016, and a member of the Patient Relations Committee from April 2011 to March 2016. So just a round of applause for her. Anne Harris is also going to be leaving us, unfortunately. I have been very fortunate to have Anne as my vice chair for a couple of years. She was a great sounding board for myself and helped me problem solve many issues in my time as chair. You might as well come all the way up. She has contributed many, many hours to the various boards and committees that she's been involved in over the years and over the years of her term. So I just wanted to say thank you very much, Anne. It's been a great pleasure. So Anne's term ran from April 2010 to April 2016. She was vice chair from 2013 and 2015. She was also on the Quality Assurance Committee from April 2013 to April 2016, and she has also been the chair of the Finance Committee since April 2011. So thank you, Anne. I would like to ask Heather to approach the podium.
All right, so I'm Heather Leslie. I'm the vice chair of the board. I would like to very sincerely thank our chair, Phil Sweeney, for his invaluable contributions to the profession and the college during this time on the board. Phil joined the board 6 years ago in April of 2010. Phil has volunteered his time within numerous capacities, including 6 years on the inquiry committee, 1 year as the vice chair of the board, and now 3 years as the chair of the board. Coming from New Zealand originally, Phil has studied in Otago and Dunedin, Australia, and he worked in Australia, Wales, United Kingdom, and New Zealand before coming to Canada in 2008 and starting his career at VGH. Phil's worked in almost all areas of physiotherapy practice throughout his career and presently has a focus in cardiorespiratory practice. In your first bio for the college, you wrote that I look forward to the opportunity of contributing to my profession and helping shape the future of physiotherapy over the next couple of years with the college. Although it's been more than a couple of years now, you certainly have done both those things. In the college's continued efforts to protect the public, the last 6 years have seen many changes as the legal environment where we work has evolved, the complexities of the cases seen in inquiry has increased, and mandates from the ministry have come from theory into reality. Throughout these times, you have been a valuable voice on the board, a well-rounded and effective chair, an excellent leader, and a friend. The board is very grateful for your contribution to the self-regulation of the profession. We thank you for your time and your efforts and your commitment to inspiring public confidence. On a personal note, you've been a wonderful mentor, and it's been a pleasure to work with you. And good job.
Thank you. Brenda said I had to say a few words, but I don't know that I can. Thank you. Very, very moving. I did not expect that kind of a reception. It's been an experience. It's been absolutely fabulous. And to keep it brief, I thoroughly encourage anyone out there to get involved in the college. It's a wonderful organization, and we do wonderful things. So thank you to all of you for giving me the privilege of being the chair of the board for the last 3 years. Okay. All right, second favorite part of the meeting. Now, I would like to say that I have failed in one respect, in that I have tried to get written into our bylaws the destruction of the proxies from a theoretical destruction to a physical burning. But we didn't get there. At this point, I would like to ask for a motion from the floor to destroy the proxies, and I'm going to propose the motion reads that the proxies of the College of Physical Therapists of British Columbia be destroyed. Would someone like to move that? And a seconder? Excellent, thank you. Does anyone have any questions or concerns about this? Okay, you ready for the question? All in favour? Motion carried. Now it comes time to adjourn the meeting, and I would ask for a motion from the floor that reads that the 2016 Annual General Meeting of the College of Physical Therapists of British Columbia be adjourned. Would someone like to move? Seconder? Perfect. This is not debatable, so all in favour? Excellent. Thank you.